I would like to introduce Kristiina Koskentola, who is presenting several artworks in this exhibition. Kristiina is a visual artist living between Amsterdam and Beijing. She works with media, she creates films, installations, sculptures, publications. She was educated in Amsterdam, but she also has a PhD from University of the Arts Chelsea College in London. She works with themes that are also very much present in this exhibition, with alternative knowledge production and mediums, with polyvocal subjectivities, and also with agency of different types of actors in this kind of a posthuman perspective, not only animals but also objects, stones. This is also an interest of her. She exhibited her works in many venues and contexts, including Free Shadows Photography Arts Center in Beijing, Galerium and Travo in Amsterdam, Zendai MoMA Shanghai, Skaftel Center for Visual Arts in Iceland, Magba Barcelona, BioArt Society in Helsinki, Goethe Institute Beijing, and many others. And I will end my introduction with a short quote from a conversation with Kristiina that is included in our exhibition flyer that I think is a good summary of her practice, but she will also talk about it more extensively during her talk. Subjecting myself to the healing and thus incorporating my own body as a subject and at the same time as a medium for this research, making myself both accessible and vulnerable was a vehicle for making a dialogue. This exchange allowed the shamans for deep and profound access to myself, which then in turn was a way for me to look for an access to the diverse worlds that were mediated through the shamans and their bodies. So Kristiina, thank you so much that you could come to be with us despite the difficult circumstances, and please.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Annette. Thank you for inviting me to the show, and thank you the whole temporary gallery staff and you audience for joining us to this event and talk. I would like to start by giving you all a social distance group hug that is at the same time institutional and entitional, if that would be a word. Okay, I will first talk about the context of the film and the project, and after that I will screen the whole film. It will be about 27 minutes. And after that, I will talk a little bit more about the ethics and methods in the processing of realizing this project and refer a bit to the theorizing and dialogues that are in the root of this work. During the presentation, after the film, and during the whole presentation, I will show a lot of still frames and production frames. But after the presentation, there will be a lot of time for questions and discussions. Over the past decades, I have been working and partly living in China. I used to have a studio in the outskirts of the urban area of Beijing, in Chaochandi village, close to the famous 798 art district. I ended up to China actually by accident. I had an overlay on my way to Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, and I had the overlay in Beijing on my way to Ulaanbaatar. I had gotten very tired with the Eurocentricity of the art discourse and wanted to challenge this by working outside of the so-called cultural capitals of Europe. Once I landed in Beijing, I was confronted with the culture I knew very, very little about. This was just before the Olympics of 2008, and Beijing was a city in huge transition. One could literally encounter different centuries of ways of life on a single street corner. I felt like this was exactly the place to be for me, for re-evaluation and to learn about life, global economy, spirituality, and Eurocentrisms of the construction of the other. In China, I was mostly based in Beijing. During this time, I witnessed the accelerated crude metabolisms of urbanization and gentrification. As you must have seen in the media, in the meanwhile, Beijing has grown beyond its capacity, and the government is decreasing the number of its inhabitants significantly. This is happening and has happened in the most brutal fashion by targeting the most vulnerable of the population, the migrant workers. And because most of the artist studios are located in the same areas as the migrant workers, we also fell a victim. However, the recent year, after my beloved studio and community in Beijing were destroyed in the large demolitions of the government in 2017, I headed north in search for the ancient knowledge of the shamans. Shamanic cosmologies urge for respectful treatment of the living, animistic, and interdependent world that is mystical, complex, and delicately resilient. My work is closely related to the posthuman, post-anthropocentric discourse. At the heart of my practice lies polyvocality and collaborative modes of working. I am interested in how an artist can mediate between diverse forms of knowledge production, human and non-human. I think this is crucial in order to generate insights into the complexities of entanglements, cohabitation of differences, and also the inequalities in immediate and larger global material and cosmic processes. In my project, this is, for example, visible in the way I position myself as an artist and as a human being, that is, as one subjectivity among other subjectivities, that is, human or not, and as well as in my political position as a nomadic artist. I believe there's a great urgency for more intimate, embodied and embodied connection with the earth. Re-acknowledging our ontological relationality, monistic metaphysics, and nature-culture continuum allows for necessary shift away from the human-centric and towards affirmation of worlds in which alternatives might find their place. This shift may be humble, but it might be also the most essential and even the most confrontational and intimate one. I show here another map of China. Chinese Manchuria, as it's mainly referred nowadays, is circled here in red and Inner Mongolia in blue. These areas are the home to rare earth, coal, and uranium mining, among other heavy industries. The Manchu are Tungistic people of northeastern China. The Mongols are East Asian ethnic group native to Mongolia and China's Inner Mongolian autonomous region. Both people, despite the historical and current religious and spiritual persecution, practice shamanism. I use the word shamanism specifically in plural, even that Manchu and Mongolian shamanisms are connected closely also to other Northern Eurasian ones. They vary very much. Shamanisms are holistic regional belief systems, cultural, ecological, and social phenomena that have their own particular cosmologies and practices. Even overlapping, they vary even by a tribe, clan, banner, or even by a village. Furthermore, shamanic practices are generally very, very individualistic. Moreover, the histories among these territories in question is complicated. The Mongols have ruled China, whereas Manchu-led Qing dynasty has ruled not only over China, but also over both Inner and Outer Mongolia. We might have to reconsider how to address general post-colonial theories in relation to these regions. It is governed by China, and it's with its own history and format of power structures that are very different of those, the context of the West. This is quote of between lines. My film is in two parts. Part one is reflecting Manchu shamanism, and the part two is reflecting Inner Mongolian shamanisms. The film Flesh and Metal, Light and Oil is talking about shamanism in northern China, in relation to deeply contaminated nature, electromagnetism, heavy industry and rare earth mining in the region, global capitalism, and my own body. Shamanisms are about harmony and balance with the nature, with the natural world and the universe, and healing powers of the pure spiritual world. On the one hand, environmental pollution is a serious problem in this region. This construction and the commentary of centuries-old spiritual practices and their relationship to the contemporary thinking and ecology and their global relevance are in the heart of this work. A central element in the work is to challenge the relationality of human beings that is causing rationality, complete opposites of that, the rationality of the human beings that is causing our alienation from spirituality and the natural world, and how this rationality could be a curse rather than a blessing, as the modernists declared. Okay, let's screen the film now. It's about 27 minutes. Afterwards, I will talk a bit more about the methods and ethics of doing this kind of work. So in the film, I examined the potential of non-living or spectral subjects as active political and ethical actors and agencies. By dialogue with the shamans, reflections on the posthuman and new materialist theories, and through my own body, I search for deeper relationship with the natural world. The film constantly rotates between different levels and perspectives: the earth, the cosmos, human, minerals, animals. These entangle and are indistinguishable. Nothing exists without another. How, for example, on the one hand, electromagnetism, like an internalized score of cosmic vibration, operates as a vehicle to other states of consciousness and enables the shaman to come in contact with the spiritual world. On the other hand, electromagnetism is also utilized, for example, our communication technology, and how Mother Earth and her minerals and stones have powerful magical potential, but are also commercially exploited and destroyed to provide modern mankind with energy and technology. As I said before, I have been living and working in China for more than a decade. During this time, I learned to know many people, which is very vital for operating in China. Everything goes with what they call guangxi. Guangxi, that is the basic dynamic of networks of friends, families, business associates, etc., on which individual can call when something needs to be done, and which can be activated on behalf of another. So in order to meet the shamans and also to find good translators, which is absolutely vital, I mobilized my guanxi. It's very important to understand that guanxi is never ever one-way street. Shamanism, or this kind of earth knowledges, healing practices, are to be found in all cultures all over the world. Despite, I think it's very essential to honor the place of this kind of knowledge, and at the same time be very, very aware that we cannot actually represent or reproduce them. In the film, I refer to these ethical questions by editing the colored glitches over parts of the secret ceremonies. And by doing this, I aim to allow a space for the magical and sacred, as well as for imagination. Simultaneously, the glitches, of course, refer to the circulation of electromagnetism. The fact that I am incorporating, and now I'm quoting what Annette already said, the fact that I incorporate my own body as a subject and at the same time as a medium for this research is of course very logical when one goes to meet a shaman. Next to being healed and diagnosed, it is a way for me to make myself accessible and vulnerable at the same time, which is a vehicle for making a dialogue. And on the other hand, this also allows the shaman for access to myself, very deep one, may I add, which then in turn is a way for me to find an access to the diverse world that the shaman's bodies are mediating. In my particular political and nomadic position as an artist, alongside the spirituality and the shamans and dialogues and experiences, the Leucian concepts of nomadism and becoming turned to be useful lens through which to reflect to the bodily roots of subjectivity and processes of mattering. The potential of the body unfolds in the state of nomadism, as in constant transformation. I am paraphrasing here the feminist scholar and philosopher Rossi Braidotti. Braidotti reflects nomadic subjectivity as subjectivity in a flux, as a progression towards the deconstruction of identity, a molecularization of the self. In her theorizing, nomadism entails a constant state of being in progress or becoming, and an attempt to explore and legitimize political agency while taking as historical evidence the decline of metaphysically fixed, steady identities. So nomadism is a process with multiple variables, as opposed to ontological or epistemological givens. Just while the subject might be physiologically embedded in the corporeal materiality of the self, the nomadic subjectivity is actually a kind of in-between and is simultaneously interconnecting and transcending both external and internal influences and effects. In Manchuria, one of the healers, as I mentioned in the credits, the brother of the female shaman was a retired party secretary of the Communist Party of the village, which is an extreme contradiction, of course, in light of the ruling party's position towards spirituality and religion in general. We talked a lot about the practicing of shamanisms in the times of Mao, how they had to destroy so many things, relics and objects, places of worships and such, and how they had to practice in hiding. This is also one of the reasons that the altars of worships are mainly at home, inside four walls. I will never forget that he told me that whatever the dialectics are, if you have the power to heal, you have to do so. This made a really big impression on me. What was also very interesting was that the discussions automatically led to reflections on larger scale, from healing and social subjects to politics and ecology, and how all these things are connected to Mother Earth and cosmos, constantly exchanging and diffracting and working inseparately. These dialogues led even to quantum physics. This all comes down to our relationship with our others, human and non-human, discursive and material. I thought these exchanges resonated feminist scholar and physicist Karen Barratt's agency and realism and her performative notion of intra-action, which she theorizes via quantum physics of Niels Bohr. In particular, how this challenges individualist metaphysics, Don't worry, I am not going to go to quantum physics here in this artist talk. I just put it a little bit in a nutshell. According to Bharat, agency is actually a relationship. This is not an inherent property of an individual, nor is it solely something of the human. This intra-action, unlike inter-action, is actually a dynamism of forces, and it produces meanings and material beings simultaneous at the same time. Hence, it's actually excluding the production of others. Interactions are onto-ethico-epistemological, since they merge that which is in the world, ontology, with that which we know is in the world, epistemology, and is concerned with the ethicality of these unions. According to Bharat, universe could be understood as agential interactivity in its becoming. Now I hope that these slides will start flipping automatically. If it doesn't happen, tell me, and then I don't know what to do. Okay. In Manchuria and Inner Mongolia, through these dialogues, it's working. Through these dialogues, my actual physical location became less and less important. That's why I also don't mention these particular places in the film dialogue itself, only in the introduction texts and in the credits, of course. All these spiritual energies were flowing through my soul body, like the earth elements, such as rare earth minerals, are circulating through the streams of global capitalism. This experience was like the schizophrenia of the contemporary world, a schizophrenic feeling of witnessing us humans shaping and tearing the world apart while simultaneously having the deep experience and being emotionally, materially, and ethically tangled and embedded in a natural environment where there's something other than human or more than human at play. So much knowledge has been lost in these regions due to the invasion of communist politics and global economics. One shaman in Inner Mongolia actually asked me to send him books from specific European anthropologists and researchers about authentic Mongolian shamanism related to the knowledge and practice that was outlawed by the Russians, but also about the time before the Tibetan Buddhism was integrated in Mongolia and in the shamanisms. I, of course, did send these books, but by via a friend, because otherwise they could have been confiscated by the Chinese customs. So what is interesting is that if one has the possibility and the privilege to talking depth with the shaman, the discussion might lead to political and economical topics, not only to healing, which is a very important point. These doctors of nature are fierce protectors of the natural world. Natural world is the very thing which they worshipped. Like the natural world, the inorganic is transformative too and capable of new alliances and ideas. Instead of using and respecting these potentials, we humans are getting buried under the waste that is the heritage of the modernism that the modernism has left us. I'm quoting here Rick Dolphin. So, thank you very much for your time. If you have questions, me personally or the general practice. General practice would of course be that you had an ailment or a curse or whatever you would need help. I was, let's start, as I mentioned already, this Guanxi. I was talking to my friends, hey, I'm going, I want to do this, I want to do that, blah, blah, blah. So they talked to their friends and they got it via WeChat. You know, this is like Chinese. So it's actually very modern. It's really a network that operates like this.
Shamans have WeChat.
Sorry?
The shamans have WeChat.
Of course. this is another thing. It's not that the shaman is some kind of mythical creature living. Of course, there are those people too. They have mobile phones. They are not ignorant, stupid, and especially they are not all good. So you should not think that they are some holy man. Some of them are horrible bastards, especially among each other. They don't like each other very much. This is not a very kind thing to say, but this is just the romanticization of the figure of the shaman is completely wrong. But I go back to your question. In my case, so my friends connected to their friends, who then connected, who knew shaman, and then I met one shaman. And actually the woman and the man, they who were dancing in the film, the party secretary, let's say, I actually met by asking another shaman who turned out to be a musician, is there a shaman in the village? And he said, yeah, 10 minutes further. But this happens, of course, only if you are introduced by someone they trust, and you can only be introduced by someone who trusts if someone who trusts introduced you already to someone who they trust, who happens to know someone who knows a shaman. So this is how this Guanxi network operates, and this it's very effective, but this is also what I mean with this two-way street. Then you do a favor, so expect yourself you to do a favor. This is really how the
so basically, what was the exchange? That's the question. Yeah, like what did you give back, or do you have to give back to the shaman, or it has to be like?
Yeah, this is. You have been living in China. You know that this is extremely gray area. Actually, which is also quite particular. I didn't pay anything to any of the shamans. They actually refused to take money from me. I did bring them vodka and chocolate from, it was Geneva, from Holland, and Easter eggs, because I thought they have a lot of humor, they would like little chocolate eggs. And this was appreciated much more. I actually, one of the shamans took me out for a dinner, other one gave me gifts, so it's very complicated system in China. This Guanxi system, actually now one of the people who introduced me to the shaman turned out to be an excellent Manchu musician. Now I invited him to play in Holland in my next exhibition, but now it's this corona, so he can't come, so now he is filming him. So this is how it operates. And yeah.
So the favor doesn't have to be returned immediately?
No, oh my God, no. And it doesn't even have to be returned to the same person.
Okay.
It could be, for example, that the shaman's cousin calls me in 5 years, hey, I'm this and this and this, and I need a place to sleep in Amsterdam. And this is how Guanxi operates. But, and then if you misbehave, you lose your Guanxi. Misbehave, I don't mean any criminal, but so you understand how this operates. You have to be, this is also what the Chinese face value is. And this kind of thing takes a lot of time.
But it kind of keeps kind of sustains the community.
It sustains the community, and it's on all levels in the community, and especially in countries like that are politically obscure at the best. This kind of networks have vital importance. Also, if you think about healthcare system in this communist country, this operates on all levels of the society. You need it for everything, from a bloody childbirth to legal help, to find a good restaurant, find a shaman, find a good doctor. It operates in every level. And it's really much more important than your career or whatever. Because a political party contacts stop everything. But that's just another shit load of Guanxi, if you ask me. What is very interesting about meeting the shaman, I already mentioned it before. every time I went to this meeting, every one of them already had the complete scenario what they want to do. I went to great lengths to explain to them that I am an artist and what I am doing. They were very aware of the content of the film, that it will be political and that it will be shown internationally. I gave them the option to not mention their name. They all chose, and they were approached already before in their own language. Sometimes it was Mongolian, sometimes it was Chinese dialect that my translator from Beijing couldn't understand. Like this female shaman, I return again to this dancing lady. Her accent was so strong that my translator couldn't translate it. So this party secretary was then talking in Mandarin. It was very, very funny. And but it's essential. But what? Now I kind of lost my thought. I went back there.
It will come back.
Yeah. Anyway, so they all had the scenarios already very much in their mind, what they want to show me, what they want to, and also a very clear point why.
Mm-hmm. Why
So,
they're doing this?
why would they do that, and why would they participate? Which was mainly not only because of that I'm a foreigner and it's interesting, or because of my Guanxi, because a lot of them, they were really have looked even to my website.
Okay.
And even because I have a lot of stuff in Chinese, so they could have read about me. I wanted to be very, very, very clear how political I am, because this is how it operates in my case. But in general, shamans, there are a lot of things what people from now, let's say, I hate to say this, we East-West kind of, let's say, Western people think that what are the ethics, how to approach and how to work. It's actually most of the indigenous people and these shamans in particular want specifically to be filmed, and they really want to share this knowledge. They think it's extremely important to allow others, because it's a communal thing, finally. And they really want to be recorded, and they want to share the knowledge.
I wanted to ask you about this kind of, this is also very visible in the film, this kind of a mixture of technology, very like modern science, quantum physics, and this kind of a very old beliefs. I had a feeling that it all kind of comes together, and this shamanism becomes suddenly very contemporary, because of course it's kind of a, like in the common understanding, it's like the thing of the past, so to speak. But I had the feeling that somehow a lot of discoveries of science, they kind of actually support these worldviews that are more holistic and that show the connections between organisms. Like there's this new research about the bacteria in our bodies, in our stomach, how they sustain the whole system, influence our mood, so we are like much more connected to the outside, and skin is like an illusion, I would say. So I don't know, I wanted to ask you about that, like this, because very often these traditional beliefs, they are being seen as something that is in opposition to technology and science, yeah? There is always this kind of it's always presented as a clash, but I had the feeling that you are arriving in your work at another position where...
Yeah, I don't think it's a clash, because it's a lot like what Bharat is talking in this Intra-action, that there is these things are always in dialogue, like talking, there is discursive and there is material, and of course everything is interconnected. I think it's actually a bit crazy to think that everything exists through the human brain. Of course, material is also living. Inorganic is also, of course, it is something that is capable of change. So we really need to find, and I think it's my deep belief that science is actually behind in this one. As for the popularity of shamanism, of course, shamanism is a bit hip subject even nowadays. There are a lot of techno-shamanism, there are, God knows, everything is shamanism. This is also, in particular, why I kind of made this film, including also some of the less pleasant parts, like animal sacrifice, not romanticizing this, and also talking about shamanism as a communal something. This techno-shamanism is a lot about drugs and ego, and I don't care for that too much. It's not... people always think that the trance is the main thing about shamanism, that it's about the trance and that's the thing, but it's much more. The position in communities where before was much larger. It's for all kind of... The trance is just one aspect. But because it's something that stimulates the imagination and is something people think that that's the key aspect, but that's not that.
So there are like many other...
There are many
here,
other...
Cooking,
yeah, there's cooking, there's the position in a community, there is the healing. This is also something that we should learn from. And in particular the position and the worship of nature. I think we have really came into the position, or we have put us as humans into the position that we actually should start not only being careful but worshipping the nature, because like I said, we have covered ourselves with garbage. And I think the only way of digging us out of this shit would be to do something completely opposite. Thank you.